Welcome to the Mike and JD Show YouTube channel. Thank you for being here. I want you to do me a big favor before you check out this clip. I want you to hit the like button. I want you to throw in a comment and make sure you're a subscriber to this channel. And then I want you to share this video with your friends. Help us defeat the algorithm. And then if you like this content and you appreciate this content, please head over to patreon.com/the Mike and JD Show and support the show. That is how we actually get funded to be able to do this. So we thank you very much for being here. And now enjoy the clip. So hard to kill, did some pretty big business for TNA's level, man. And they had a really good night, and you could tell because the crazies were out in full force on social media and on their podcasts and all that stuff, trying to deny their success. So like they came out and just was one insult after another trying. I don't know what it is about this TNA that gets people so crazy, so riled up. So this idiot, stupid, dumb face, fucking loser named Justin LaBar, who does do some busted open stuff, and he is he's been on some pretty big websites. It kind of seemed like an offhand thing, but he on Twitter was talking with Raj Giri, and he replied to a Raj Giri tweet about TNA's Hard to Kill. I said, it was a good show. I'm paraphrasing. I'm not going to pull up his tweet because I don't follow him and I don't want to search for him. But said, he made the mistake, the utter mistake of saying that if TNA, based on how great Hard to Kill was and how good it looked and all that stuff, if TNA gets a TV deal, they could be in line. They could compete for that number 2 spot. And boy, did people lose their minds. How dare you? How dare you compare them to AEW, our beloved AEW? Never do that. They've never had that. And then like it was one after another, just trashing TNA. I was just like, guys, they had a good weekend. Like it was one of their best weekends they've ever had. Like, why would you be worried about Justin LaBar, idiot, saying that TNA could come for that number 2 spot? Like, it's like that guy's not living in any type of reality. It would take more than a TV deal to get them to that number 2 spot. Not only would it take a TV deal, like they would have to get paid a lot of money. Like I think that AEW, they're on the cusp of a big giant rights fee increase. But even then, I think, and I don't know the exact numbers, but they're getting a lot of money for all 3 of their shows that are on the Warner properties. So they're getting a ton of money just for the rights fees. But they're also, for their major events, they're still doing really, really well selling tickets. Now for their TV shows, for their level, they're not, but for their pay-per-view events, they are, and their pay-per-view events are doing over 130,000. So I think anytime you compare TNA to AEW, it's not a fair comparison because AEW they have more resources, better production values, they have a lot more money, and they're just on a different level. So don't do that. Like this should be a celebration of TNA's awesome weekend, and that's where I'm going to keep my focus because anytime you break personal records, right? It's kind of like being in the gym, okay? Like if I break a personal record for an exercise, for a lift, or for whatever, I can only compare myself to myself because I can't compare. Like I'm 40 years old. I'm 5'11". I'm 195 pounds. I can't compare myself to someone that's 6'4", 250 pounds. Like that would be a dumb thing to do, right? So I can only compare my personal records and what I'm doing and focus on me. And that's what TNA is doing. But anytime anybody brings up any other company, it's not a fair comparison because you're comparing someone that's 5'11", 195 to someone that's 6'4", 265, right? It's just not, that's just not what you can do. Or if you put it in sports terms, it would be like, comparing an NFL franchise to a, kind of more of an XFL, UFL franchise, right? Like they have some good talent. They have some former NFL players, right? But they don't have the deep pockets. They don't have the big money, and they don't have the assets or the resources to get top recruits from college. because they're just not at that level. So just enjoy what they're doing at their level. Keep it that focus. It's not fair. Right? Access TV is not really widely available. So comparing their ratings to AEW or WWE, it's not a fair comparison, right? So but let's just keep it at what TNA was doing. And TNA sold, at least the last count was 1,630 tickets. But from what I'm being told is they were still selling tickets while the show was going on. So people, like, I think they were probably getting drunks from the craps table. And so it would not surprise me if they had over 1,700 people in that venue, which is very good. That's very, very, very good for TNA, right? And in fact, they said it was their most attended show in the last decade and their best gate of the last decade. So it says, so this is from Dave. So the first show back, Hard to Kill, was the show drew 1,630 fans. So that was based on the last count. I think that it could have been more. And basically packed with the stage set up and called by the promotion, the largest crowd and gate they had done since 2015. Most pay-per-views the company had done were from Universal in Orlando, with fans allowed in for free. There was a 2015 Bound for Glory show in Concord, North Carolina that drew 1,800, but that would be with far lower ticket prices. And there were shows in Brooklyn, New York at the baseball stadium that did more than 5,000 years back. But I that Concord, North Carolina, if that number is true, 1,800, I would question how many of those people got in for free. And it appears that based on the fact that they kept opening up more seats, like every person that was in there, at least the people that were in there by bell time, that 1,630, all those people paid for their tickets, which is great. So they did great at the gate. Obviously, they had another 1,200 in for Snake Eyes the next night, which is a massive success. It was their best TV taping they've done in 10 years. So, and of course, a lot of people want to credit Ospreay and Okada for that. But honestly, when they announced Ospreay and Okada, those tickets didn't move right away. They didn't actually move until like the 2 weeks prior to the event when they started, promoting locally. And that's what really got people in. It was local promotion and people excited about TNA. So I'm just going to give all the credit to TNA. Nothing against Ospreay and Okada, but I think this was just TNA doing their job, and so that was great. As far as pay-per-view sales, he says at press time, so at the time that he's writing this, our estimate on the pay-per-view from a television standpoint, so we're talking TV pay-per-view buys only, so buying through your cable provider, was 3,400. And if you go with the 30% television, so saying that people based on estimates, right? So this is all estimates, that you get about 30% of your audience is paying on television, meaning 30% out of 100. So the rest of the 70% is going to come from streaming. So he says if you go with a 30% television, that would be about 11,200. So if you factor in the 70% estimated buys from streaming, you're getting up to 11,200. So that's a pretty good pay-per-view number for TNA. So at the same point in time, and for Bound for Glory 2023, the previous pay-per-view, that would be up from 1,800, almost double, 89% up from the last show. I said that's actually more than they were doing at the end of Spike, and probably more than one-third of what they did when Kenny Omega faced Rich Swann. So Kenny Omega and Rich Swann were in the 20,000 in the 20s there, probably bordering on close to 30,000, which was their highest mark dating back to when Hulk Hogan and Kurt Angle were there and they were on Spike. And he goes on to say, keep in mind that the figures we have indicated last year's 1,800 ended up at 6,900, but that's with a very suspicious number from one system. He said, which was double checked and still came up the same. It was just weird. But if you factor one system out, the numbers were almost identical, with Bound for Glory being less than 25 more buys nationally with the late buys. This will surely finish well ahead. I'd figure there'd be curiosity at the first show over with the new name, but in a few months, things will revert back to normal and the name will be irrelevant to the attendance and buys. So, yeah. So a big increase over Bound for Glory, which is great. Like, so you can only compare them to themselves because they're only in their own little area. And a lot of people get focused on like who's number one, who's number two, who's number three, who's number four, who's number like TNA didn't care about any of that. TNA is in TNA world doing TNA shit, minding their own TNA business. And I think that TNA fans, you hardcores out there, need to stick with that. Don't worry about what other companies are doing. Just, enjoy each company in their own separate universes, in their own world, right? Don't focus. Like it's not like competitive sports with one company versus another. Like get that out of your fucking heads. It's so stupid. But yeah, it was a a smashing success for them. The rebrand is here. The rebrand is doing great, and good for them.